Hey guys, Jason here. Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and I am really excited for this video. Today we're going to be talking about the new Five Finger Death Punch album, Legacy, which just released today, and I'm going to be reviewing it. So, without further ado, let's actually get into the video. So, before I actually go track by track, there's 10 tracks on this album. This is Five Finger Death Punch's 10th studio album, and this is their shortest album, too. Yeah, I think that, it is their shortest album. It's only 10 tracks. But before I actually go into the track list and talk about all the tracks and what I think about the whole album, I'm just going to tell you my expectations, which I made a video about before the album came out. I made a video about what I was expecting for this album, and pretty much what it was, you know, going Death Punch, Five Finger Death Punch, sort of going back to their roots, sort of going back to their old sort of American capitalist, sort of War's the Answer sort of sound, but also embracing that new Death Punch like they did on F8. And that's pretty much what they did with this. I will say, and I think I did mention it in the other video, but for me at least, Afterlife, which was the last album, wasn't the strongest album for me. And I don't think it was for a lot of Death Punch fans. Even, of course, there's always the people that are like, oh, I hate every new Death Punch album, but, and I hate the band. But I mean, like, I'm talking about, like, fans that even really that do really like the band. Yeah, I feel like Afterlife, you can always argue that it wasn't really the strongest album. It still had really, really good tracks, like Welcome to the Circus. That's one of my favorite Five Finger Death Punch songs of all time. If not one of my favorite songs of all time. And then we have tracks like Afterlife, which is good. IOU. Then you get Electronic with Judgment Day, which that's technically not a metal song, but yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know. It just wasn't the best album for me. But F8 was the best album up to that point before this album came out, and I'm going to talk about it. So let's actually get into the tracks of Legacy. So first we start off with the title track itself. When I heard the intro, I was immediately hooked. It sort of sounded like something different. They were embracing a lot of like ambient sort of textures and atmospheric stuff in this. Sort of sounded like a metalcore sort of intro to a song. But once that main riff hit, you knew it was like the old Death Punch. You were getting a heavy track. You were getting a heavy ass banger, and that's what it was. Andy James' fucking guitar playing on this whole album, and especially this song, is great. Andy James joined the band in 2020. It was right after the F8 album. Jason Hook had just left the band, and then on Afterlife, yeah, of course he did some good solos and stuff, like on Rolled Them Bones and IOU and songs like that, but I feel like he really got to show his talent more on this album because, damn, it's like such a difference. But I think with Afterlife, it was, I think it was just the way the album was. It was just the way that sound was. So that's why I really think that he never really got to show his talent as much on that album, just because, of the way that it sounded. And even Jason Hook, he was great. But dude, with this is where I like fell in love with Andy James and like his guitar work. I actually did see his YouTube stuff. And I did watch some of it, and it's really good too. He did like stuff on YouTube before he joined Death Punch. But anyway, let's get back to this. I'm getting off into a tangent. So Dio Pressa Liber, or however you're supposed to pronounce that, is the second track. This is one of the tracks that came out before the album, and I talked about it, and it has like this American Capitalist sort of vibe with the intro. Again, like the guitar solo is great on this song. It took a little bit to grow on me. At first, I didn't like it as much, but now I fall in love with it. The chorus is great. The sort of choir sounding part closer to the end of the song with the spoken word vocals makes the song sound even better. A really, really good song. And then Eye of the Storm. I've grown to love this song. Before, I didn't love this. I didn't like this song because this is one of the songs. This was also the other single that released before the album, and it was sort of the same thing with that song. It took a minute, but now it's. I don't know if I would say it's one of the best Death Punch songs, but at least on the album, it is one of the best songs on the album. It's just a great track. The chorus is great. That's my favorite part. It's like this alternative metal sort of sounding chorus. We get some breakdowns. We get a lot of breakdowns, actually, in this album, which is surprising. And I sort of do like it. But, yeah. Then we have Nails in the Coffin. They change up the key for this song. The chorus is really like the whole song. You get like these I don't even know how to explain the vocals, but in the verses, but it's like it's very country / pop influenced, but it's not to the point where I can't stand it. And actually, it's probably one of the best tracks on the album as well. But what really makes the song live up to its reputation is the chorus and the guitar solo and like the rest of the song. It's so melodic, and I love when Death Punch really goes into that melodic sort of territory. And even like then, it was sort of a heavier track as well, or at least for like the new Death Punch sound. But I still love when they go into that like melodic sort of territory on this, and it just works really well. And now we get the first ballad, In Time. Great ass song. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite song on the album. All these tracks are really, really good, but great track. Really, something that Death Punch is leading into is, really good sort of sounding ballads. So, like it. We get another heavy track, which I feel like really, really shows off Andy James's guitar work as well. That track, it's called Unscathed, and that track probably has the best, one of the best, if not the best, Andy James solo I've ever heard. With Afterlife, even with the solos on Roll Them Bones and IOU, I couldn't really pick like this is a great Andy James sort of solo. But like with this, it was sort of obvious. And Legacy, that has a great solo too. All these songs actually do have really good solos. Nails in the Coffin has a really good like melodic sort of solo on it. But this is just pure like technicality and shredding. Well, I shouldn't say technicality, because Five Finger Death Punch is not really a technical band, but pure, I'm just going to say it's shredding. It is shredding for what it can be. But the rest of the, terms of the rest of the track, this also sort of gives me like American Capitalist sort of vibes. The chorus is great. Verses, you get like these, sort of spoken word. Well, not really in the verses, but like in some parts of the song, you get spoken word vocals. There's a lot of spoken word stuff throughout this album, which I really like. And yeah, that's what makes it really, really good. Then we have Jokes on Me. A heavier sort of track. I think this one has a breakdown as well. With a really, really melodic chorus, which I feel like, at least on this, I feel like it has some of Ivan's best singing. I feel like that has some of Ivan's best singing on it. At least for, I would say, at least for the chorus. But yeah, what was it? Yeah, oh yeah, back to Unscathed. Yeah, now that I remember, yeah, the spoken word stuff was in the verses. But Jokes on Me, this great song, great little track. Heavy, it's a heavier track, but it also has that melodic stuff, and that's really the thing about the new Death Punch is they've really embraced like that heavy song on albums like F8 on this. They've embraced that heavy sound, but also adding a melodic sort of flair to it. But yeah. Then we have another sort of ballad with Everybody Lies. I will say it was not a bad track, but I would say this is the track that I didn't really care for on this album. All these tracks are sort of like they're all good in their sense, but yeah, this was probably my least favorite track on this. It had, I don't know, it just had too much like country influence and not enough like, it wasn't like something like Judgment Day or Thanks for Asking on Afterlife, and even then I still did sort of like those tracks, but yeah, I don't know, I just didn't really like vibe with it all that much. I understand if you really like it, but for me at least, I just didn't vibe with the song that much, and sounded a lot more country pop influenced and a lot less sort of metal influence. So yeah, that is the thing. But then we get to Shelter. Shelter, the intro sort of reminds me of the intro of The End, which was the last song on Afterlife. It sort of reminds me of that sort of type of intro. Then we get a lot of rapping, sort of spoken word vocals again in the verses, which actually sort of helps the song. Then we get another like melodic sort of chorus. This is probably one of the middle of the road sort of Death Punch tracks. Along with like Eye of the Storm, and I think I would even put Nails in the Coffin in like the middle of the road sort of section there. And then we end with Scapegoat, which is like another sort of heavier track. The intro sort of reminds me of like Burn It Down or something like that from War is the Answer. But we get like I don't know if this is my favorite track, but I do like the octane core sort of style breakdown that comes. Sort of reminds me of, like those songs that they play on Octane, like the modern day sort of, what's a great band that does that? Like Memphis May Fire, or Falling in Reverse, I Prevail, like all those bands that do the sort of style. Five Finger Death Punch really sort of embraced that sort of element. And I will say, compared to Afterlife, there's not as much electronic elements on this album. Yeah, there's like a lot of synths, there's a lot of ambient stuff, a lot of things that make the songs atmospheric, but it doesn't feel like Afterlife or even any other Death Punch album. There's not like a lot of electronic things. Feels more like an older Death Punch where they weren't using a lot of sort of filters, a lot of electronic things, a lot of, all that stuff. Of course, they're still there, but I just didn't notice them as much. But yeah, that's the track by track review. Now what I will say, I remember. Well, before I go on that, let me just give my thoughts on the album. It was really, really, really good. It was peak Death Punch. It was, for me at least, it was up there. It's up there because my favorite Death Punch albums are F8, or are, well, I'll just put them in this order. My top four: Way of the Way of the Fist, Wrong Side of Heaven, Righteous Side of Hell, Volume 1, F8, and then War is the Answer. But when I really think about it, this goes up there with those. And even then, it might be F8. I still have to think about that. I know it definitely beats Wrong Side of Heaven, Righteous Side of Hell, Volume 1. I'm not entirely sure about F8. I gotta re-listen to it again, and I gotta see. But if that's the case, it might beat that album too, but dude, it's never gonna fucking beat War's the Answer. War's the Answer is just, that's the peak of Death Punch right there. That nothing, or you gotta make something, like, you gotta work as hard as you can to beat, to beat that album. It is the pinnacle Death Punch sound. But I think this one is at least beat the some of the spots that I've had in the top 4 albums. So, yeah. Now I can get on to the other thing that I was going to say. I remember, I think it was 2023, 2024. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember Ivan saying, I remember Ivan announcing that he was going to do one more album with Death Punch, and then he was going to leave the band and focus on, like, a solo project or something like that. Okay, here's my thoughts on that. My thoughts are, if that happens, then I've talked to people about this. I've talked to my friends about this. They personally don't want the band to continue if that happens, or at least continue making albums. Because they're afraid, like, it would turn into the sort of Linkin Park sort of situation. Because Ivan, like, is the face of the band. He's, like, the front man. Like, yeah, like, with a new singer, like, how would Five Finger Death Punch even sound? Like, my personal thoughts are, I wouldn't mind if the band continued, but that's just because I'm biased and it's my favorite band. But I also wouldn't be opposed of the bands, if Ivan does leave the band. I would also be opposed of the band not doing another album, or at least not doing another album for a minute. Because what if they do another album with another singer, and what if it's trash, you know? Like, what if it's the worst thing we've ever heard? So, okay, yeah, so that's how I feel. Like, I feel like if the band did continue, I wouldn't mind it, but I also agree with some of my friends that know about this stuff that I've talked to, that say that they wouldn't mind if the band just either ended or just didn't make albums. Because, yeah, you know, replacing a singer, it is hard, and yeah. But we'll just have to see what happens. If that is the case, and this is like Ivan's last sort of album, then we'll see how the future Death Punch, we'll see how it all moves forward. But yeah, go check out the album if you're a Five Finger Death Punch fan. If you hate Five Finger Death Punch, well, fuck you. I'm kidding, but seriously, if you do hate the band, seriously, if you do hate the band, I would probably recommend this album or F8 or, well, most people have probably already heard Words in the Answer a bunch of times, but I would recommend this. At least give this a chance. See if you find anything of value, and yeah, and if you do, then maybe it's changed your opinion on the band, but your opinions are your opinions. I'm not going to judge you guys. I have my own opinions, and my opinions are my opinions, so think whatever you want. If you hate Five Finger Death Punch, go ahead and hate them. If you absolutely love them, do that as well. I don't fucking care. Do whatever you want. But anyways, that's enough of me talking. Go check out the album, Legacy, the 10th album by Five Finger Death Punch. And one more thought before I end this video. I will say that the album did feel a tiny bit too short. Just a tiny bit. I feel like they should have done I feel like they need to do a deluxe version with a couple extra songs. And not like 4 extra songs, just like a couple. Make it like 12. If you do that, that's a perfect album length, because that's the same amount of tracks as Afterlife. But if they did like 2 extra tracks for a deluxe edition, that would be a perfect album. But I don't know if they're going to do a deluxe this time, so we'll have to see. But go check it out. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next one. Oh yeah, forgot. Stay tuned, because I will be ranking every Five Finger Death Punch album, which I did already rank every Five Finger Death Punch album, but what I mean is I will be reviewing every Five Finger Death Punch album, going track by track like I did with this one. So it'll be a more in-depth sort of review. So stay tuned for that, because I will be doing that. But now I can end the video. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.